Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something a little darker, a time of plagues, punishments, and pottage. Forget the shiny castles and noble knights Hollywood likes to show you. The real Middle Ages? You probably wouldn't survive a single day. Before we jump in, make sure to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this kind of deep, weird history. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is there. I love seeing who's tuning in from around the world. Alright, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Let's slip back in time together. Congratulations. You've just woken up in the year 1325. The good news? You're alive. The bad news? So are the fleas. Your bed is a half-rotted straw mattress stuffed with hay and bugs. It smells like a barn floor because, well, it was a barn floor a few months ago. Forget pillows or soft blankets. You've got a scratchy wool one that hasn't been washed since last winter. It's so grimy it could probably stand up on its own. You wake to the sound of the church bell clanging in the distance, the medieval version of an alarm clock, except louder and definitely less forgiving. Your home is a one-room wooden hut with no windows, one door, and an open concept layout, meaning you, your family, and your animals all share the same air, floor, and smell. The air is thick with the scent of sweat, goat, old beer, and something you really hope isn't mold. Scented candles don't exist yet, and even if they did, they'd melt on your dirt floor. You stretch, and immediately regret it. The air's freezing, your joints ache, and your back sounds like a creaky door. You're 22, which, by medieval standards, means you're basically middle-aged. When you finally step out of bed, your bare feet land on something wet. Maybe rain leaking through the thatched roof. Or maybe something the neighbor's chicken left behind. Either way, you're now part of the ecosystem. Privacy? What's that? You share your bedroom with your parents, siblings, and probably that random cousin who never left. There are no curtains, no doors, no quiet time. Just communal everything. Welcome to morning in medieval Europe, where you're never really alone, because fleas, rodents, and 7 other people are always with you. And this is just how your day starts. Now that you've crawled out of your medieval haystack of misery, nature calls. And it's not asking politely. It's yelling. Here's where you start missing modern plumbing. There is no toilet. No seat. No toilet paper. No flush. No privacy. In the 1300s, going to the bathroom is not a private human need. It's an event. If you're a peasant, your bathroom is basically a wooden bucket behind the house. That bucket is already almost full because Uncle Wolfston had a bad night with some spoiled turnips. The smell? Biblical. You hold your breath. You do what you have to do. And then you do the most medieval thing of all, you throw it in the street. Yes. The street. You're supposed to yell something like, Garde-la! Before you dump it, which basically means, heads up, incoming poop. People sometimes move in time. Sometimes. By the way, medieval streets are not cute cobblestone walkways with flower boxes. They're open sewers. The whole town smells like human waste, animal waste, and unknown liquids that we're not going to talk about. And if you live in a busier town, there might be public latrines. Sounds better, right? No. Imagine a long wooden bench with holes, and everyone just sits side by side. No walls. No stalls. No shame. You and 3 strangers making eye contact while pretending nothing is happening. You can chat if you want, but I wouldn't breathe too hard in there. Toilet paper does not exist for normal people. You wipe with straw, grass, leaves, scraps of fabric, moss, or, if you're feeling fancy, a piece of old wool. Sometimes, you just don't wipe. Which is also why handshakes are not a huge thing yet. And if you're thinking, well, okay, but rich people in castles had it better. Let's talk about that. Castles sometimes had something called a garderobe. It's basically a hole in the wall. You sit, and your waist drops straight down the outside of the castle into the moat. Easy, right? One problem: enemies know that chute exists. So yes, people have literally climbed up through it to sneak into a castle. Imagine being on the toilet and realizing that an angry soldier is coming up the poop tunnel with a knife. That's a real medieval security risk. So, whether you're a farmer or a baron, going to the bathroom in the Middle Ages is cold, gross, public, and slightly dangerous. Also, one wrong step on a wet stone street, and you're face first in humanity's leftovers. And before you ask, no, you have not brushed your teeth yet. You survived the bathroom. Congratulations, that alone deserves an award. But before you celebrate, your stomach growls. It's breakfast time, or whatever passes for breakfast in the Middle Ages. You sit down by the fire, or what's left of it, ready for something warm and comforting. Maybe some eggs, bread, and a hot drink? Yeah, no. Welcome to disappointment on a plate. Your breakfast is a bowl of pottage, a thick, grayish mush made of whatever you could find yesterday, and the day before, and probably last week. Pottage isn't so much cooked as it is ongoing. You just keep throwing new ingredients into the same pot forever. Think of it as medieval soup that never ends, only ages. It's got a few grains, maybe a carrot, possibly a bean if you're lucky, and the flavor of despair. On the side, there's bread so hard you could use it as a weapon. It's made from barley or rye, wheats for rich people, and sometimes mixed with ground acorns or sawdust just to stretch it out. You don't slice this bread. You fight it. There's no butter, no jam, no anything. Just you, your spoon, and whatever that floating lump might be. Don't ask. Don't look too close. And drinks? Forget juice or coffee. The water's full of parasites, so your only safe option is beer. Yes, beer. At 6 in the morning. Everyone drinks it, kids too, because it's safer than water. It's weak and watery, but at least it won't kill you immediately. Meat? Dream on. That's for holidays or when your lord decides to be generous. Cheese? Maybe if it hasn't gone bad. Fresh fruit? Only if it's in season and you somehow beat the rats to it. Spices like pepper or cinnamon? Those cost more than you'll earn in a month. Salt is basically treasure, people lock it up. So you chew your rock-hard bread, sip your sad little beer, and try not to think about the rat that may have sampled your pottage during the night. Breakfast doesn't fuel you. It just happens to you. But you eat anyway, because soon you've got to get up, get dressed, and work like your life depends on it, because it literally does. You've eaten your sad medieval breakfast. Now it's time to get dressed, not that it'll make things much better. Your wardrobe consists of exactly one outfit. 1. It's a rough wool tunic or linen shift that you've worn every day for months, maybe years. There's no concept of fashion. There's just, keep wearing this until it falls apart or grows its own ecosystem. If you're lucky, you have an undertunic made of linen. If not, you're going full commando under scratchy, sweaty wool. Every fiber of it itches, and every thread smells like smoke, dirt, and regret. Laundry day? Doesn't exist. There's no washing machine, no soap, no clean clothes pile. If you want to wash something, you have to drag buckets of water from a well or river, heat it over a fire, scrub your clothes with ashes or lye, and hang them to dry. By the time you're done, you've basically washed away half your lifespan. So most people just don't bother. Your clothes are stiff, stained, and scented like a compost pile that's been aging for art. And shoes? Ha! If you have any, they're made of thin, untreated leather that offers about as much support as a soggy tortilla. Most people just go barefoot, through mud, through animal dung, through whatever life throws underfoot. And yes, your skin hates you. Everyone's skin hates them. Fleas, lice, and bedbugs are everywhere, peasants, nobles, monks, kids. No one escapes. You'll be scratching yourself constantly, in public, with whatever object is nearby, a spoon, a stick, a vague sense of despair, and no one will even blink. Your scalp is crawling. Your armpits itch. Your skin is red and blotchy. If you get a rash, congratulations, that's your new companion for the next 6 months. There's no cream, no doctor, no relief. You just live with it. So now you're dressed in damp wool, covered in bugs, and starting to question all your life choices. And the day's only just begun. But before you leave the house, there's one more thing, that smile. Or what's left of it. Because in the Middle Ages, smiling is risky, not emotionally, but dentally. There's no toothbrush. No toothpaste. No floss. People might occasionally chew on a stick or rinse with vinegar, but that's it. Your teeth are basically tiny victims trapped in your mouth. By your mid-20s, you've got cavities, swollen gums, and breath that could knock out a dragon. Sugar's rare, but when the rich get it, it just rots their teeth faster. The poor do it slower with hard bread and years of bad chewing. Toothache? Get used to it. The pain is constant and soul-destroying. No dentists, either. Only barber surgeons. Yep, the same guy who cuts your hair will also pull your tooth out with metal pliers by candlelight. No anesthesia. No mercy. If the wound gets infected, there are no antibiotics. People actually die from toothaches. Imagine explaining that to St. Peter. So now your smile's a horror story, your breath could peel paint, and your mouth feels like a war zone. Congratulations, you're finally ready to start your day. Time to head outside and work until your body gives up. Now that you're fully dressed in itchy wool and missing half your teeth, it's time to head out and earn a living. Except in the Middle Ages, work isn't a career. It's a survival test. If you're like 90% of the population, you're a peasant. That means you work the land that belongs to someone else, a lord who probably doesn't even know your name. You rise with the sun and stop only when it disappears behind the trees. There's no clock, no weekends, no coffee breaks, and definitely no mental health days. Your tools are simple: a wooden hoe, a rusted sickle, and sheer willpower. You dig, plant, weed, and harvest from dawn to dusk, all while praying your back doesn't snap in half. The work is brutal. The fields are muddy and uneven. If it rains, you're soaked. If it's sunny, you're cooking. And if you get sick or injured, tough luck, you still have to show up. If you don't work, you don't eat. And if you don't eat, you die. The medieval job market is very straightforward that way. Women don't have it easier, by the way. You work the fields and handle everything at home: cooking, cleaning, caring for kids, spinning wool, fetching water, feeding animals, and pretending your husband's lice problem hasn't migrated to you yet. Children start helping out by age 5. No school, no toys, just a tiny wooden rake and a lifetime of chores. By age 10, they're already miniature adults, working right beside you. If you're lucky enough not to be a farmer, maybe you're a blacksmith, a baker, or a tanner. That sounds better, right? Wrong. Those jobs mean standing next to open fires, boiling animal guts, or breathing in toxic fumes all day. Safety regulations? Never heard of them. The pay? Barely enough to survive. The perks? Occasional bleeding and a lifelong backache. Break a bone. Walk it off. Catch a fever? Drink some warm beer and hope for a miracle. There's no retirement plan. You work until your body can't, and then you're quietly replaced. That's it. By midday, you're drenched in sweat, covered in dirt, and wondering if this is what your priest meant by God's plan. Still, you keep going, because in the Middle Ages, stopping means starving. Your job isn't about climbing a ladder. It's about not collapsing on the ground. After hours of backbreaking work, you might think the weather would at least give you a break. It doesn't. In the Middle Ages, the sky is your biggest bully. Let's start with winter. There's no heating, no insulation, and no double-glazed windows. Your home is a wooden box with holes so big you could throw a chicken through them. The fire in your hearth is small, smoky, and never enough. You'd love to collect more wood, but wood is expensive, and sometimes illegal to gather from the Lord's forest. Get caught picking up sticks from the wrong patch of land, and congratulations, you're now a criminal. You wrap yourself in your one damp wool tunic and huddle close to the dying fire. Your breath fogs in the air. Your fingers go stiff. Your toes stay wet for months. Frostbite isn't diagnosed, it's just called bad luck. At night you sleep under your unwashed blanket and pray your nose doesn't freeze off. Then comes summer, and you think, finally, warmth! Nope. Welcome to your personal oven. Your little hut traps heat like a clay pot, and there's zero airflow. You sweat through your layers, but you can't take them off because that's considered scandalous. Also, the flies would eat you alive. The air smells like spoiled goat stew and people who haven't bathed since Christmas. The mosquitoes are relentless. The sun burns your skin. You have no sunscreen, no hat, and no shade unless you're lucky enough to hide under a tree between chores. Working in the fields feels like slow cooking yourself. Heat stroke isn't a medical emergency, it's just the Lord's will. If you faint, people step over you and keep digging. Spring means mud and floods. Autumn means endless rain. There's no good season, just different ways for nature to ruin your week. So whether you're freezing in winter, roasting in summer, or slipping in mud the rest of the year, one thing never changes. Your clothes still itch, your food still tastes awful, and tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Welcome to medieval climate control, which is to say, there isn't any. Feeling thirsty? Want to splash some water on your face and freshen up after all that hard labor? Too bad. In the Middle Ages, water isn't your friend, it's your slow, invisible enemy. That lovely-looking stream near your village? It might look clear and cool, but don't be fooled. Upstream, someone just dumped a bucket of human waste into it. Or a dead animal. Or both. Every sip is a gamble with parasites, disease, and whatever else floats by. That's why everyone, even kids, drinks beer. It's weak, barely alcoholic, but at least it's boiled during brewing, which makes it safer than murder water. If you're rich, you drink wine instead. If you're poor, it's beer for breakfast, beer for lunch, beer for dinner, and a shorter life expectancy all around. Now about bathing. You'd think people would wash off the grime after a hard day. Nope. The medieval belief was that bathing actually made you sick. They thought opening your pores let disease slip in. So staying filthy was considered healthy. Bathhouses did exist, but they had a reputation. Some were used for gossip, others for extra activities, if you know what I mean. The church eventually got involved and shut most of them down. Cleanliness was starting to sound suspiciously sinful. Even if you did want to bathe, it was a nightmare. You'd have to haul buckets of water from the well, heat them over a fire, pour them into a leaky wooden tub, and hope no one else used it first. Families often bathed in the same water, in order of importance. Dad first, then Mom, then the kids. By the time it got to the baby, it was less a bath and more a soup. Rainwater? People collected it in barrels, which were basically open bird toilets. So yeah, not ideal. And soap? If you're lucky enough to have any, it's made from animal fat and ashes. It smells like sadness. So whether you're drinking it or bathing in it, water in the Middle Ages is never safe. One wrong gulp and you're spending your final hours clutching your stomach and praying for a quick end. Next time you turn on your tap or hop into a shower, just remember, your medieval ancestors would think you're a wizard. So, you've either drunk bad water, stubbed your toe on a cursed rock, or eaten something that might have once been alive. You're sick. You need a doctor. Too bad. You live in the Middle Ages, where medicine is less, healing science, and more creative torture with confidence. Here's the problem. No one actually knows what causes illness. Germs haven't been discovered yet. Instead, doctors believe your body is full of 4 fluids called humors, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. If you're sick, it means one of them is out of balance. The solution? Make you suffer until they think it's fixed. Got a fever? Clearly, you have too much blood. So the cure is bloodletting. They'll cut you open or slap leeches on your skin until you're lightheaded, pale, and somehow sicker than before. And yes, barbers often do this. Imagine getting your hair trimmed and your veins drained in the same appointment. Feeling sad or anxious? That's excess black bile. The cure? A laxative. Nothing says mental health like spending 3 days regretting your life choices over a bucket. Break a bone. You're in trouble. There's no anesthesia, no disinfectant, and the tools are basically knives that haven't been cleaned since the last crusade. Surgery happens by firelight, with someone holding you down while a guy mutters prayers and hopes for the best. Antibiotics don't exist. Infection from a small cut can turn fatal. Catch something serious like the plague, and your options are prayer, panic, or a priest with last rites. Doctors back then are confident though. Oh, they'll prescribe anything: crushed beetles, herbs, animal dung, wine, mercury, or maybe just walk it off. Sometimes they make you sniff flowers. Sometimes they bleed you dry. If you somehow survive, everyone thanks God. If you die, well, clearly it was your fault for not being pious enough. So, in the Middle Ages, medicine isn't really about getting better, it's about surviving the cure. And now, after being poked, drained, and bled half to death, you're ready for dinner. After a long day of work, filth, and questionable medical advice, you're finally home. It's evening. Time for dinner, the one part of the day that might bring you a little joy. Spoiler, it doesn't. Your meal is whatever didn't spoil yet. Remember, there's no fridge, no freezer, no cling wrap, just salt, smoke, and hope. If you're lucky enough to have meat, it's been hanging for days, covered in flies, and probably shared with a few rats. The smell is bold. If you're not so lucky, it's pottage again, that same stew that's been bubbling for weeks, now with extra mystery flavor. You just keep adding things to it, some cabbage, an onion, a turnip, and maybe a prayer. It's less of a recipe and more of a survival experiment. Bread's back on the menu too, still hard, still sad. And depending on the season, it might come with a special bonus: ergot, a fungus that grows on rye and causes hallucinations and convulsions. So yes, your dinner can actually make you trip. Medieval life, where the bread bites back. Vegetables? Only if they're in season, and that mostly means turnips. Always turnips. The Middle Ages ran on turnips. Fruit? Maybe in summer, if you can grab some before it rots or gets turned into wine. Sugar's rare and expensive, so don't even dream about dessert unless you're a noble. Speaking of nobles, they get feasts: roasted meat, pies, wine, and more spices than you've seen in your lifetime. But don't envy them too much. Half their food's spoiled, and their castles are crawling with fleas, rats, and bad decisions. Back at your peasant table, you eat from a shared wooden bowl with your family. Everyone uses the same spoon, or their hands. The lighting? A single smoky candle, if you can afford one. Water? Still deadly. So you wash everything down with weak ale again. Every bite is a gamble. But you eat anyway, because hunger's worse than flavor. When you're done, you set your bowl aside, scratch another flea bite, and thank God for another day of not dying. Because in the Middle Ages, food doesn't nourish you, it tests your will to live. It's evening now. You've worked yourself half to death, eaten your grey stew of sadness, and you're finally ready to rest. Except, no, you can't. Because God is watching. And so is the priest. And so is your neighbor, Agnes, who will absolutely tell everyone if you skip Mass. In medieval Europe, religion isn't just a part of life. It is life. The church owns everything: your land, your time, your money, even your afterlife. Think of it like your spiritual landlord, and rent is due every day. Your entire schedule revolves around the church bells. They ring in the morning, noon, and night to remind you to pray. Miss one? Sin. Eat meat on Friday? Sin. Have a dream about your neighbor's wife? Double sin. You can't read the Bible yourself because it's written in Latin, a language only monks, priests, and that one smug noble kid understand. So you rely entirely on the church to tell you what God wants. And surprise, what he wants always seems to involve giving them more of your stuff. Tithes are mandatory. That's 1/10 of everything you own. Wheat, eggs, coins, chickens. Even if you barely have enough to survive, you still owe the church its cut. Can't pay? Too bad. You're spiritually bankrupt and still poor. Holidays? Oh, there are tons of them. But they're not about relaxing, they're for fasting, praying, or confessing your sins. Joy is suspicious. Laughter's borderline heresy. The church wants devotion, not dancing. And speaking of heresy, questioning the church is basically a death wish. Doubt a priest? Burned. Disagree with doctrine? Drowned. Make a joke about a saint? Congratulations, you're a blasphemer. The fear of hell is real, and it's detailed. Priests describe it vividly: rivers of fire, demons with pitchforks, endless screaming. If the plague doesn't scare you, the thought of eternal barbecue probably will. Still, people cling to faith. It's all they have. When life is short, filthy, and brutal, the promise of heaven is the one light in the mud. So you kneel, cross yourself, and whisper a prayer, not just for salvation, but maybe for a slightly less terrible tomorrow. Because in the Middle Ages, God may be merciful, but the church definitely isn't. So far, you've survived filth, famine, fleas, and the priest's judgmental stare. But imagine doing all that as a woman. Being a woman in the Middle Ages is like playing life on hard mode. No restarts, no power-ups, and no one cheering for you. From birth, your path is basically pre-written: marry young, have children, serve your husband, die tired. Education? Forget it, unless you're a noble sent to a convent, and even then, you're learning more about prayer than power. Girls are betrothed around 12, sometimes younger. By 14, many are already wives, and soon after, mothers. Marriage isn't about love, it's about property, alliances, and livestock. Your feelings don't matter. Your dowry does. Once you're married, you legally belong to your husband. He controls your home, your body, your choices, even your clothes. Your job? Produce sons, cook, clean, spin wool, and never complain. Because complaining could get you labeled a nag, or worse, a witch. And witch accusations are no joke. Being too outspoken, too smart, or just too unlucky can earn you a one-way trip to a river dunking or a bonfire. Congratulations, you've achieved. Heretic of the month. Childbirth is another battlefield. There's no prenatal care, no doctors, no anesthesia, just midwives, prayer, and pain. Even a minor complication can be deadly. Some women survive a dozen births. Many don't survive too. And when the baby finally arrives, there's no rest. You're nursing, cooking, cleaning, and working in the fields again before your body's even healed. No maternity leave. Just endless work, endless exhaustion, and endless expectation. Unmarried women? Suspicious. Widows? Vulnerable. Single women with opinions? Dangerous. If you're poor, you're invisible. If you're noble, you're property. If you're religious, you might get respect, but only if you live like a saint and speak like a whisper. Even nuns, who escape marriage, live under strict rules, silence, obedience, and a lifetime of being told that men are closer to God. So yeah, life as a medieval woman means enduring, obeying, and surviving. Society expects you to suffer gracefully while everyone else complains loudly. And somehow, through all of that, women still kept communities running. They raised families, brewed ale, healed the sick, and told stories that kept hope alive. They weren't powerless, just ignored. Because in the Middle Ages, women didn't get credit for surviving the storm. They were the storm, but no one was brave enough to admit it. So, you've survived the daily grind, the church's guilt trips, and childbirth roulette. Think life can't get any worse? Welcome to the Middle Ages, where violence isn't a breakdown of society. It is society. Everywhere you go, someone's fighting someone. The streets, the fields, the tavern, even the church steps. There's no such thing as a quiet neighborhood. Justice is more about making an example than finding the truth. Steal a loaf of bread? You could lose a hand. Caught lying? They might pierce your tongue. Gossip too much? There's a special invention just for you, the scold's bridle, a metal mask that locks around your head with a spike in your mouth to keep you quiet. Think that's bad? Wait till you hear how they do trials. Medieval justice has a favorite game: trial by ordeal. You're accused of theft? Great! Stick your hand in boiling water and pull out a stone. If your wound magically heals in 3 days, you're innocent. If not, guess who's guilty? Another version: you're thrown into a river. If you sink, congratulations, you're innocent. And probably dead. If you float, you're guilty and headed for punishment anyway. Fairness, medieval style. And punishment isn't private, it's entertainment. Executions are public events. Everyone shows up. Vendors sell food. Kids get front row seats. Hangings, beheadings, burnings, all served with a side of cheering. It's the medieval version of reality TV, except the contestants don't come back next season. Domestic violence? Completely normal. Husbands are expected to discipline their wives and children. Bar fights happen daily. You can get beaten just for looking the wrong way at a noble's horse. And then there's war. Always war. Local feuds, land disputes, religious crusades. Someone's always marching off to stab someone else in the name of God, glory, or boredom. Armor and swords aren't just for knights. They're business attire for anyone with ambition and no empathy. So yeah, violence is part of daily life. You don't ask if it'll happen. You ask when and how bad. People lose limbs, teeth, dignity, sometimes all three, and somehow still show up to work the next morning. Because in the Middle Ages, peace isn't normal. It's suspicious. At this point, you've survived the filth, the fleas, the fieldwork, and the fighting. Congratulations, you've made it to the final level, dying. Because in the Middle Ages, death isn't rare. It's routine. If you're over 40, you're basically a celebrity. People might even call you the old one, like you're some kind of walking miracle. The average life expectancy is around 30 to 40 years. But that's mostly because half the kids never make it to age 5. Disease, hunger, accidents, take your pick. Childhood is basically a death lottery. If you do survive childhood, you enter adulthood already exhausted. Your back aches, your joints crack, and you've lost most of your teeth before you've lost your first dream. For women, childbirth is the biggest killer. No doctors, no clean tools, no anesthesia. Just prayer, panic, and the hope your midwife knows what she's doing. A lot of mothers don't make it. And the babies? Many don't either. For men, dangers everywhere: farming accidents, infections, violent drunks, or the occasional war. Even a small cut can turn deadly if it festers. Without antibiotics, a blister can become a funeral. And then there's disease. Plagues sweep through like clockwork, wiping out entire villages in weeks. The Black Death alone kills millions. Imagine the flu, but it turns your skin black and kills you in 3 days. That's Tuesday in medieval Europe. Famine is another regular guest. One bad harvest and everyone starves. People eat bark, grass, or whatever they can find. Some even dig up graves looking for food. Yes, it got that bad. If disease or hunger doesn't get you, bad luck will. Fall off a ladder, step on a rusty nail, get kicked by a cow, that's your obituary. Funerals are quick. No fancy coffins, no embalming. Just a shallow grave in the churchyard, if there's space left. If not, they dig up old bones and make room. The goal isn't comfort, it's containment. The afterlife, though, is a big deal. People spend their entire lives terrified of hell and praying for a ticket to heaven. Last rites are serious business. You want a priest by your side before you go, just in case. Death is everywhere. In the air, in your food, in your home. People see it daily. They bury friends, family, neighbors. It's so common that fear turns into acceptance. No one retires in the Middle Ages. You just stop showing up. And the next day, life goes on without you, because for everyone else, death is just part of the schedule. You've done it. You've survived a full medieval day, the fleas, the filth, the fear, and the food that might have been alive last week. You've made it through one of the roughest, smelliest, most unforgiving eras in human history. Congratulations, though you probably wouldn't have lasted long. When people imagine the Middle Ages, they think of castles glowing in the sunset, knights galloping into battle, and fair maidens singing by moonlight. The reality? Mud, rot, illness, hunger, and a smell so strong it could register as a weapon. There were no shiny suits of armor for most people, no royal banquets, no chivalrous rescues. Just endless labor, endless dirt, and the hope you wouldn't die of something stupid, like soup. Even nobles, who seemed to have it all, lived surrounded by disease and paranoia. Their castles were freezing, smoky, and crawling with rats. Servants emptied chamber pots out of windows. You could be rich and still die from bad meat or infected teeth. The Middle Ages weren't romantic. They were real, and real meant raw, brutal, and short. Yet, somehow, through all that misery, people found ways to keep going. They told stories, sang songs, and carved tiny bits of beauty out of the chaos. They built cathedrals that still stand, wrote poems that still echo, and dreamed of better worlds even while their own was falling apart. Maybe that's the most human part of all, not the filth, not the fear, but the stubborn will to keep living, keep laughing, keep hoping. So the next time someone tells you were born in the wrong century, remember this: the 1300s didn't have Wi-Fi, medicine, plumbing, or coffee. You'd trade your smartphone for a chamber pot, and your bed for a pile of straw. And if you somehow time traveled back there, you wouldn't last a week, but that's okay. You don't have to. Because you've already survived it here tonight, in your imagination. Now you can turn off the fan, wash off the medieval grime, and be grateful for hot showers, clean sheets, and modern life. Sleep well, and thank your ancestors for crawling through the mud so you could scroll through history.